Now discuss fiscal policy. Okay. So the real meaning, significance, and impacts of fiscal policy emerged in the era of the Great Depression and the Second World War. Fiscal policy has been defined the policy of the government with regard to the level of the government purchase, the level of transfer, and the tax structure. Probably the best and the most acclaimed definition among the experts. Later, the impact of fiscal policy and on macroeconomy was beautifully analyzed, as the policy has a deep impact on the overall performance of the economy. Fiscal policy is also defined as the policy which handles public expenditures and the tax of to act stimulate the level of economic activity, numerically denoted by the gross domestic product. It was J.M. Keynes, the first economist to develop the theory linking fiscal policy and economic performance. Okay, fiscal policy is defined also defines the as changes in government expenditure and taxes that are designed to achieve macroeconomic policy goals such as growth, employment, investment, etc. Therefore, we say that fiscal policy, not the use of taxes and government expenditures, how the taxes and the government expenditure influence the overall economy, has been explained in the brief discussion here. Let us first discuss the taxes and their impact on the economy. The taxes have a direct bearing on people's income, affecting the levels of this level of taxes have a direct bearing on people's income, affecting the levels of disposable income, purchase of goods and services, consumption, and ultimately their standard of living. These taxes directly affect the savings of individuals, families, and firms, which affect investment in the economy, and invest affect the output GDP, thereby influencing the per capita income. Taxes affect the pricing of goods and services. The affect cost. Production cost is affected, thereby affecting investments, incentives, and behavior of economic activities. Government expenditures influence the economy in two ways. There are some expenditure on government purchases of goods and services, for example, construction of roads, railways, ports, food grains, etc. In the goods category, and salary payment to government employees in the services category. And there are some expenditure due to government's income support to the poor, unemployed, and old age people, known as government transfer payments. Deficit financing. India was declared to be planned economy right after independence, as development responsibilities of the government were very high. There was a need of huge funds in rupee as well as in foreign currency forms. India faced continuous crisis in managing the required fund to support its 5-year plans. Neither foreign funds came nor internal resources could be mobilized in sufficient amount. Due to lower tax collection, weaker banks, the two were privately owned, and negligible saving rate, etc. By the late 1960s, the government headed the effort deficit financing, and from the 1970 onwards, India started going for higher and higher fiscal deficits and became more and more dependent on increased deficit financing with every previous year. We may classify deficit financing in India into three phases. The first phase, 1947 to 1970. This phase had no concept of deficit financing, and the deficits were shown as budgetary deficit. Major aspects of this phase were trying to borrow from inside and outside the economy, but unable to meet their target. In the 1950s, the serious attempt was made to increase tax collections and trade revenue expenditures to be ultimately able to emerge as a surplus revenue budget economy. So but huge cost was fed in the form of tax evasion, rise in corruption, stagnating standard of living life, and a neglected social sector. Taking recourse to heavy borrowings from the RBI, and finally a nationalization of banks so that their money could be used by the government to support the plans. This not only increased the interest burden of the government, but also ruptured the whole financial system in coming years. Banks did not remain commercial entities and became part of the government's political statements, establishing the giant PSU with higher revenue expenditure which increases the revenue expenditures of the revenue of the future governments when the pensions and the PF needed to be serviced, so unable to go for the required level of investment even after taking recourse of all the above given means. The second phase, 1970 to 1991, this is considered the period of deficit financing follow-up, the phase of the unsound fundamentals of the economics, and finally culminating in severe financial crisis by the year 1990 to 1991. Major highlights of this phase may be summed up as follows. This phase saw the nationalization policy and simultaneous revival of an increased emphasis on expansion of the PSU. 2 points should be noted here especially. First, many of the Southeast Asian economies have officially declared their acceptance of capitalism and privatization. Secondly, China had declared that investment in the government-controlled companies are a loss of money. At this time, upcoming PSU increased the total expenditure of the government revenue as well as capital. Existing PSU were taking their own due from the economy. The illogical employment creation excessively increased the burden of the salaries, pensions, and PPF. Many of them had started fetching huge losses by this time. Yet the public sector does not have profit, as its primary core theory was lack of profit and loss analysis, as the PSU have no connection between their need of labor force and the existing labor force. Ultimately, the responsibility of profit or loss did not remain the onus of the officers, thus making them centers of international losses and the institutionalized centers of corruption, etc. The government have failed to grow the sector with funds taking for the population rise and mass employment generation. The burden of different subsidies went to increase, making them unmanageable and highly illogical. Self-employment programs would not pick up or better side. It was politically suitable to go for piecemeal wage employment programs with different names. Planned development remained highly centralized and devoid of any place for local aspirations. Frustrations of masses started showing up in the forms from extremist and radical organizations raising their heads, creating law and order problems and excessive expenditure on them. The outcome was a hardened police force and lagging judicial setup. The planned expenditure which governments were going for were through investments in the PSU, which were not committed to profit or deficit financing for the PSU, which was based on sound economics. Sound majority of the planned expenditure in a sense turned out to be non-planned expenditure at the end. Due to the above given treatment reasons, it was tough to say whether it is sound to go for huge fiscal deficits. So, third phase, 1991 onwards, this started with the initiative of the economic reforms. The process under the conditionalities put forth and the IMF controlling fiscal deficit and one Amongst them, as the economy involved moved from government dominance of onto market dominance, things needed a restructuring, and public financing also needed a touch of rationality. So Indian fiscal situation now, next time we discussed. Okay, it's so thank you.